All right, peace. Peace. Hotep, Vasa, brother Vasa. Peace to you. I'm taking this time to go live on my channel. One, to kind of test this out because I've really never used my own channel, to go live. So if you can let me know that I can be heard, I would appreciate it. If you could let me know that you hear me. All right. And so yeah, I want to test this out, and also, if there are people who will chime in, don't mind having a brief, some conversation related to the ATOS movement, stemming from the conversation a little earlier on Garfield's channel, the Dagger Squad's channel. So a lot of people have a lot of different things to say and comment about, but you can't really unpack and tease out the conversation in the way, that people are chatting in the chat rooms and things like that. So I always like to kind of go a little further on the conversations. So what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to post the link to come in on this panel here. Come in on the panel to have a discussion, basically kind of stemming from what we were just talking about earlier. All right, so let me just post the link. Post a link right here in the chat, right here on YouTube, and I'll post it from time to time. So anybody that does, chime in, want to have this discussion. Let me see. All right, it is too big. It won't let me post everything. Let's see. Yeah, they need to kind of straighten this out here. All right, that is the link to hop in on this panel here. Let me see if I can post the whole link. That's the only part of it. Okay, so I appreciate it. You said you could hear me. All right, I appreciate that. That lets me know I'm doing something right. Also, but at the same time, let's see. Okay. Yeah, well, that's the link. So I'll keep it simple. Yeah, so anyway, I'm kind of testing this out, and of course I didn't expect anybody to actually tune in unless they are subscribed to this channel already and they've clicked the bell and they get notified. So this is completely unannounced. And but yeah, it'd be nice if somebody were to, or people that were chimed in or tuned in would chime in on the panel, so we can have a little discussion on this. So Vasa, if you are available, you can click the link if you want to come in on this. But so anyway, I want to make sure that everything is working all right. So when I do actually schedule discussions and inform people that I'm having these discussions, if they want to tune in or be a part of this discussion, I just want to make sure everything is working. Make sure everything is working properly. So. And it looks like it is. I'm gonna just make sure a couple of other things are working fine. Make sure my screen is changing fine and everything. So yeah, so but yeah, if you're still listening, yeah, what I plan to do is use the channel, because I've never used my own channel under my YouTube username. I'm always on other channels or as a group collectively. So I feel, I can do something else with this channel as well, to have these kind of discussions. And see, I like to slow discussions down and not go so fast into the and skate over issues in a very brief way, and to where it's really not effective. Like, you're not really benefiting or gaining anything from having conversations that are fast paced and only touch on the surface of issues, instead of slowing it down, digging real deep, and going through some issues in much more detail. All right, so I see my screen changed properly. All right, so I am assuming that everything is working all right. I could be heard. Peace, duality world. It says, been listening to you and others when building. I respect your patience with those other dudes. I just started subscribing to your channel. Okay, appreciate it. So hopefully you'll chime in on some of the future discussions that I will have on this channel. And like I said, I like to slow the conversations down and be topic driven. So, not all over the place type of conversations, to stay on point, stay on code, on topic, and actually drill down into the topic in much more detail to kind of unpack it and sift through a lot of things. And I think that we need to do that more. The other kind of conversations have its place, but I think we need to do more of the slow down version of having these conversations. Inform people, because we need to educate ourselves on all of these different topics that we're going to talk about. It only makes sense to be informed about something before you open your mouth and talk about it. And so anybody and everybody can have an opinion about anything, but it's almost, we almost become a community of judging books by their covers, where people will glance at something or have this peripheral view of something. And I see someone came in, and I'm not sure who this is, but peace to you, whoever this is. Maybe you can let me know, introduce yourself if you can hear me. Make sure I can hear you. And if your audio or whatnot is not working, you can type in here as well. So hopefully you can hear me. All right. So while you're working that out, I'm just gonna continue talking. So as I was saying though, is that we need to get more detail. So I was saying it's just very, very, very basic, that before engaging in a discussion, you should be informed and proficient or competent in the topic that you're attempting to discuss. And so what we have though, we have a lot of discussions taking place, a lot of people talking, a lot of people are offering their opinions, but they're not informed enough to where their opinions can have substance and value, because everybody has an opinion, and that's the freedom that we all have. But whether that opinion has value or not is a different story. It's based on how well you are informed about the issues that you're talking about or having an opinion of. So I can't have an opinion about the ATOS movement if I never educated myself and informed myself about the movement, what the issues are, and the history of it, and what's going on, what's being advocated, and all of that good stuff. And so this is, a lot of times, this is what we have. And when you do that, you end up engaging in a conversation that is outside the perimeters of the issues of the movement, and then you're just talking about trivial things. And if we're consumed and our attention is on the trivial things, then it becomes detrimental to the actual advocacy or what the movement is about. And so those kind of people become part of the problem and not an ally to the solutions or part of the solutions. And so this is what I see is going on. And so I would like to have a little more detailed conversations about the reparative justice claims, specifically the ATOS advocacy movement, and whatever other topics. So, that's not the only thing I talk about. And most people know me from being an independent researcher and teacher of ancient Kemet, its culture, its language, and so on. So, I'm going to have discussions about that as well. I normally have those kind of discussions on the Seshu YouTube channel, and we do it as a group. But obviously, I'll engage in some of that conversation on this channel as well. So anyway, this is going to be, this is my channel, to my username. I never used it before. Been a YouTube member or user for a long time. I just never use my own channel to do anything. So now, I'm going to do it and just talk about any topics that come to my mind based on things I see on social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or whatever the case is. And then hopefully have discussions with people. And I like interactive discussions. I like panel type of discussions where, I'm not the only one speaking, or, I'm not being a dictator, because I don't know everything. I don't think any one person knows everything. I don't think any one person claims to know everything either. But it's always healthy to have a diverse dialogue with people who are at the very least informed about a topic in order to talk about a topic. All right. It does no good to have a discussion about a topic that nobody on the panel is informed about. I mean, that's just, it is no benefit in that. That becomes like pure entertainment. And so, I'm not really dealing with entertainment, although entertainment is good. We should be entertained and all that good stuff, but it has its place. So that's the point of, those are the things that I'll be doing on this channel. So I titled this video right here, meet and greet and discussions related to ATOS, because one, I want to make sure I test out and make sure everything is working for this channel, because I'm used to being on other channels and doing things for other channels. So I want to make sure everything is working on this channel, and also to see if anybody who is tuned in right now, if you would like to come on the panel. I do want to make sure that all of that is working. So I think one person came in, but I'm not sure who that is. Oh, okay. Oh, Duality World. All right, Hotep. Peace to you. Oh, okay. So he's he's at work right now. All right, I understand. All right, that's fine. But yeah, I put the link in the chat. So if anybody's watching right now, I'll post it again. So again, my interest on this particular channel, like I said, I've had this channel ever since I've been on YouTube, just never used it. But I am going to start using it. So, and what I'm going to use it for is to have panel discussions where, well, what I would like to have is panel discussions on various different topics of interest. All right. Not the real fast microwave peripheral gossipy type of discussions. I'm talking about a little more in-depth type of discussions that are slowed down on certain topics. All right. So that's what I look forward to doing. And then also, I may just share information and do a few presentations about different things that I do deal with. Again, most people know me for being an independent researcher as well as a teacher of ancient Kemet, its culture, and its language and writing system. So I'm a teacher of the ancient Egyptian language and the hieroglyphic writing system that we call Rani Kemet and Seshmetu Necher. So that's what most people know me for, and that's what I do pretty much as a focus and on a regular basis. So I'll do some of that on this channel as well, of course. So, but I'm utilizing this channel for topics that interest me. Bring up these topics, and hopefully people will chime in on the discussions and everything. All right, so. And I'm just testing it out, and that's why I said meet and greet, because if anybody wants to, meet me or meet them, then it's fine. So I see 7 people watching right now, and I came on here totally unannounced. Really, right after Garfield ended the Dagger Squad live session, where he brought up a couple of issues about ATOS. And he played a video or audio of, I think, Javen Bullets and his opinion about ATOS. And then the day before, Garfield played a video of Irritated Genie and his opinion of ATOS and things. And so earlier on his channel, I called in, and a lot of people in the chat had a lot of things to say. But that's really not a good conducive environment to really have a conversation, through chats. So what I'll do, I'm gonna use this channel to have, more meaningful conversations. People don't have to just type these one-liners, and you limit it to 200 words or 200 characters in these chats where you can come in on the panel. I can have up to 100 people in here. All right, it's not like Google Hangout where you can only have 10 people on the panel. No, I can have up to 100 people on the panel. All right, so the link that I provided, up to 100 people can come into the panel and allow their voice to be heard, and we can have a really, really good discussion. Don't have to talk over each other. Don't have to be disrespectful or any of that stuff. As a matter of fact, I don't really tolerate that at all. So, but anyway, that's what I'll be using this for. All right, so. Without many people watching right now, it's not really much for me to say, because I feel like I'm talking to myself right now. But for those who are watching, what I will say right now is reiterate some of the things I said. If you were watching Garfield's or the Dagger Squad channel earlier, one thing that I keep saying over and over again is that people really, really, really need to educate themselves on politics, on the political process, on legislation and law, especially the laws that relate to these issues that are being advocated by the ATOS movement. All right, because the law, if I just say educate yourself on law, I'm not expecting people to become lawyers or anything like that, but there needs to be a push for more education. People need to become more knowledgeable about these things before they open their mouth and talk, because it's a lot of clutter. The opinions are clogging the vein or the arteries of this discussion. It's just a big clogging. People are talking about things that are irrelevant. People are talking about things that don't matter in relation to the movement. Now, it may matter to that person. Obviously when people bring up something, then, it must matter to them for them to bring it up. But in the bigger picture, it's irrelevant. A lot of things that's talked about are irrelevant. People are expressing their feelings, their opinions, likes and dislikes. It's not even about any of that. It's about the politics, it's about legislation, and it's about law that governs all of the above. And if you're not competent or knowledgeable about that, then you're going to be very, very handicapped or limited in what you could say. And this is what we see. All right. So you got people out here who are against Antonio Moore and against Yvette Carnell. They don't know them at all. Never met them. Don't know them from a can of paint. But they are against them. And at the same time that they're against them, they haven't done the necessary research and investigation into what they have said and what they have done. I find this to be true 9 out of 10 times of 9 out of 10 people that I engage on this subject. People have not, 9 out of 10 people have not studied Antonio Moore's videos where he's sharing information. 9 out of 10 people have not studied Yvette Carnell's videos and the information she shared. But 9 out of those 10 people will have a whole lot to say about Antonio or Yvette themselves or about the ATOS movement. You know, and I find that strange, and it's very it's detrimental to any type of progress when people do that. All right, it's like me giving a commentary about a book that I never read, or a book that I just read the summary or the back. You know how you give a summary of a book on the back on the back cover, or I'm just judging by the table of contents. So I open the book, look at the table of contents. Now all of a sudden I want to have a discussion about the book. And that's really what a lot of people are doing. Not everyone, but a lot of people are doing that. And so that has to change, because this is not a conscious community debating topic where people play around and get entertained and it just comes and it goes. The advocacy for reparative justice is a very, very, very serious issue. It's a very serious issue. It's been an issue. It's not something new. It's been an issue since the 1800s, technically. And then, you know, in more recent times with the civil rights movement, and you have legislation that is proposed. For example, one of the things that are most talked about is HR 40, which is a bill to establish a committee or a congressional committee to actually do and lay out the research for reparative justice for slavery. All right. And a lot of that work has already been done. It's just that it needs to be sanctioned or protected by the government, because as civilians, there's but so much you can do. And people ask the question about, well, how does Yvette and Antonio plan to execute the agenda? Or what are their plans? And see, when people ask that question, it lets me know right there that they don't understand how this all works. Because the reason why you pressure your congressman is because you want them to do something that you cannot do. Okay, congressmen, we can't pass laws. Laws of this country on a federal and a state level is part of the legislative branch of government. If you are not a member of that legislative branch of government, you are not going to be passing any laws. So you can't execute these laws. You can't submit proposals for laws because you're not in that position. You're not a person who is elected as the official to do that. So as civilians or citizens, you pressure those people who are in those positions that can do that. And so when people ask, how does Antonio and Yvette plan to carry out the what's in the agenda, that's a bit of misunderstanding. That question is coming from either ignorance or misunderstanding. So it's all about advocacy. It's all about pressuring. It's all about informing, and it's all about educating people, because the more people that advocate, the more pressure there is. But at the same time, it's about pressuring and convincing the people who are able to carry these or execute these things to actually do it. We have to force these people to do it. And that's where pressure and force come into play. But if we are arguing over irrelevant things, then we're never even going to build up the pressure to break the pipe or to force these people to deal with our issues. All right, so I see I got somebody else in here. Okay, brother Kadeem, Hotep, peace to you.
What's up?
All right, yeah, I'm just talking. You know, I don't even know if I'm talking to myself or whatever the case is. I'm kind of testing this out at the same time, just giving commentary because I'm gonna leave this video up. Give a little commentary on the discussion from earlier on Garfield's channel, the Dagger Squad's channel, related to ATOS. So, but feel free to chime in. Feel free to chime in anytime. I'm just talking right now.
Yeah, I was listening. I'm Zane Montego on YouTube.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know that. All right, that's cool. So what do you? So I don't know. So were you able to tune in on Garfield's show earlier?
Yeah, I was just listening because I don't really know that much about ATOS, so I'm just learning every day as it goes by. On the Dagger Squad channel.
Right. Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Garfield played a clip of I think Javen Bullets. I think that was the name. And one of the things he claimed was that the sister Yvette Carnell, is not for reparations. She's against reparations. So what do you think about that?
No, I thought that's what the whole purpose of the ATOS movement was for.
Right. So how can anyone fix their fingers or their mouths to say that Yvette Carnell is against reparations or not for reparations? To me, that's part of the problem. To allow and this is one of the things that I was saying, that I gave Garfield my opinion about what he's doing, because Garfield, this is the second day, I don't know if it's second day in a row, but this is the second time that I saw recently that Garfield will advocate or support or share somebody's video or commentary that's against ATOS, and it's not that in itself is not a problem. The problem comes in is when these videos are being shared, but they're not even proving their claims. Javen Bullet said that Yvette Carnell is against reparations or she is not for it, but he never substantiated that claim. And
the whole narrative was reparations. I never heard anything about LGBT so far, anything like that.
Exactly. So for Javen Bullets to create a video saying that is weird. But then, like I was telling Garfield, my opinion of him playing it and showing it is also weird, because you're playing something that somebody didn't never even prove. Like I said, but that's not a problem in and of itself. But because Garfield does not like Antonio Moore, and he does not like Yvette, and he does not support the movement, he's biased, and it's showing in what he's talking about and what he covers, because he has not shown any video as of yet. Now he probably will if he hears me say this or whatever the case is, where somebody's commentating and in support of ATOS. He hasn't shared a video like that yet. So that's why I reiterated earlier that he's against ATOS movement. He's not against ATOS receiving reparations, but he's against the movement. But then that begs the question, because if he's against CARICOM, which he said, which is a confederacy, CARICOM is basically a confederacy of the 15 Caribbean nations coming together to advance a justice claim, and they're making headway with that. So Garfield's against that, per what he said, and he's against the ATOS movement. But at the same time, he says he's for ATOS receiving reparations. And so that in and of itself needs a whole discussion, because then it becomes, okay, well, when you say that, what do you mean by that now? Like if anybody says that they're against the ATOS movement and against CARICOM and stuff like that, but at the same time say that they're for ATOS receiving reparations, then now we need some further clarification. We need some further description of that. Is it?
Yeah, because I don't know, why would he be against CARICOM? I think that relates more to him than ATOS.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So it, so that, like I said, that's why it's a problem. It's an issue, and that's why I said it on his channel on the air. Because I don't have any problem with Garfield. Garfield's cool. Garfield is really, really a good brother in the whole nine. I never met him in person, but everything I know about him, everything is cool with him. But I gave him my opinion of what he's doing, just like he gives his opinion about the movement and stuff like that. I told him that I think what he's doing is part of the problem. But it's not just him, but it's anybody that does that. I think what the video Irritated Genie did is part of the problem, because Irritated Genie basically made a claim that the ATOS movement is a front for the LGBT agenda. And in the video, he never substantiated that. He never demonstrated that at all. And so that's weird to me. Same thing with the clip he played from Javen Bullets. Said that Yvette Carnell is against reparations or she's not for it. And to me, that's crazy, because if you listen to Yvette Carnell's videos from the past 2 years on Breaking Brown, if anybody's been following her or been a part of the Breaking the Brown group and stuff, man, there's no way in on this planet or any other planet that you're going to ever think that Yvette Carnell is against reparations, when that's like, that consumes everything she talks about. That, to me, that's really, really crazy. I mean, anybody that believes that, then we definitely have a problem. We definitely have a problem. We're not going to get anywhere. And those kind of people just need to step aside. Like, talk about something else. Because it's like, it becomes, how, you tell children that, oh, wait a minute, y'all go over there and play. This is adult conversation. That's what it really is coming down to on for some of these people.
Okay, yeah, because it's like it's bringing more divide on what the actual topic is.
Exactly.
Because they're actually talking about, their sexuality and all this. Like, they keep on talking about the character instead of the actual plot of the whole thing.
Exactly. And we should know better than that by now. We should know that is self-defeating. That's why we're seldomly successful. We're rarely successful at these kind of endeavors, because we go off and talk about things that are irrelevant, to that, what really matters. Because like never, and I see, that's why I told Garfield the very, very, very first show he did about ATOS. He did a show. He was talking. He was talking about CARICOM, and what's even more funny is that Garfield compared ATOS. Originally, he compared ATOS to the LGBT, but he was saying that he was bigging up the LGBT movement. Not that he agrees with the movement, but he was bigging it up. And I want to be clear on this, because I don't want to put words in his mouth. He wasn't supporting their agenda, but Garfield bigged up the movement in as far as how they got money and how they got lobbyists to operate on their behalf to get their agenda moving, to get the things that they got. That was Garfield that did that, So, but nobody's saying now, because I don't want to confuse it to say that he's supporting the movement or the agenda, but he brought it up in a favorable light, saying look at them, like in other words, he brought them up to as if to say that we can do what they did.
Okay, yeah.
You know, do what they did and stuff. So hold on, I'm trying to see if how I can change this thing here. So hold on, let's see where. All right, I guess I can't. Okay, anyway, I was trying to see, you know, so when it sort of switch, so it won't just be on my avatar the whole. But yeah, so that's a problem. And then people like, okay, for example, another thing that was said earlier, you know, because see, when I talk about, see, when Garfield goes live, you know, I caught his live, and I'm hearing what he says, and I'm like, I can't believe that he's playing a clip from a person who claims that Yvette Carnell is against reparations when that's all she talks about. She's been talking about that ever since 2016 on a regular, consistent basis, but she's been talking about that before 2016. Anybody who's familiar with her or has been following her in the Breaking Brown, same thing with Antonio Moore. They're not new to it at all. So I'm like, wait a minute, why isn't anybody checking that? So when I call in, every time I call in, it sounds like I am advocating Antonio or Yvette. And that's also crazy, because those two individuals are more than qualified to speak for themselves when it comes to them. So when I call in and what I talk about is in defense of the issues and the movement, not a particular person. And plus, if you lie about anybody or you lie on anybody, I mean, obviously the right thing to do is to put that in check. So, but people confuse it, and so this is where people want to home in on irrelevant discussions. They want to we are fixated with the gossip, we're fixated with the drama, and that really has to change. So like I said, so I'm gonna use this channel to have future discussions, but I'm gonna schedule them though. So so more people will participate who's interested. I'm gonna try to get as many people as I can who's interested and want to be a part of these different discussions, whether it's ATOS and other things I deal with as far as Kemet and all this other kind of stuff. So that's what I'm gonna be looking forward to do. And we have to do more of this. And it's not just me or not because I'm saying it. It's just the better thing to do to slow these conversations down, because you can't, especially on serious topics. People are treating this ADOS movement like it's a fad when it's not. Because listen, on one hand, people say, man, what Yvette and Antonio doing is nothing new. Reparations has been around for a long time. Look at Cobra. Look at this. Look at that. But then they'll talk about it like it's a fad. And so people are very small-minded and think that, okay, the ADOS movement is a fad, which is telling, because they don't understand what the movement is about. Because if they understood what the movement is about, they would never say it's a fad, and on one hand, and then on the other hand say that reparations and everything has been ongoing and people have been all into that, because that's what the movement is. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did ask a question in the chat. Like, did Yvette had any previous movements that didn't stand up, or they fall or something? But nobody seemed to answer that.
Right. I mean, if you look into Yvette's history, she used to work on Capitol Hill. And so she's rubbed elbows and deals with politicians. So she's familiar with how all that stuff goes. You look at Antonio Moore. He's a lawyer or an attorney. So he's received training in that. So he understands logic. He understands law. He understands how law can care less about your emotions. It can care less about what you like, what you dislike, how you feel. Yeah. He understands that, and he comes from that position, because this is why everybody has to become a little bit more I say legally literate, or legal literate, or law literate, politically literate, because people have to understand what the issues really are. Like I asked the brother in the chat earlier, Admiral Majay.
Yeah.
He claims that I think that I'm more intelligent than everybody, or I'm more educated than everybody, and I never claimed that or whatever. Just because I said that we need to, people need to be more educated before they open their mouth. And so, but then I asked him a question. I'm saying, okay, so if you think that I'm wrong about that statement, or you want to twist my words, fine. So I asked him a question. I said, are you aware, do you know about the laws of lineal descent and how it relates to reparative justice? And then he finally answered and said no, but he can Google it. And
yeah,
so,
you did ask that like 3-4 times.
huh?
I said you asked that about 3 or 4 times in the chat. I saw that.
Yeah, I asked him 3 or 4 times, because I wasn't sure if he saw it. So when he finally answered, he said no. So he proved my point. I'm telling people to be educated, and then people having a problem with me telling people to be educated. But then when I asked them a question that is a very serious, integral part of this whole thing, they don't even know. So I'm like, well, why are you talking?
Yeah, that was really weird.
I'm like, why are people giving opinions, and if they don't even know, like, people don't even understand who would be ADOS? Like, who is ADOS? Like, what qualifies ADOS? Like, what's going on? Like, ADO, like, people have a problem with the acronym, the A, the D, the O, and the S, and what it stands for: American Descendants of Slavery. And see,
the American part is like, so I was like, DOS is probably what everybody's thinking about, but you have to think about what the A means.
well, this is the thing. Antonio and Yvette. Well, Antonio used to always say American DOS. Like, if you watch his older videos, he used to always say DOS, and then he would say American DOS. So he would say the A as American, but then he'll just say DOS, and then that became a hashtag. It was hashtag American DOS.
Okay,
Then,
see, I didn't know that.
yeah, and then it got short. The A got shortened to just the four letters, ADOS. But it was always American DOS, and but that's for a reason, because in order whenever you bring forth a justice claim, you have to identify the damaged party and the people responsible for the damage, and you have to explain the damage itself. So it's 3 things: the damage, who did it, and who they did it to. And so in identifying the victims of the damage, you have to set boundaries. You have to be very, very detailed on that identity. So it's not about black people, it's about actual descendants of victims of the institution of slavery. If those people were still alive, then it would be just them. But so many decades and centuries have gone by. Now we're talking about the descendants of them. And so that's why that acronym is being emphasized. But even then, even if people have a problem with the acronym, it lets me know that people don't understand how law works. Because I can call, like, I can come up with a name. Let's just say I create a name called Oogie. I just created that word Oogie. The word itself does not matter. It's all on how it's defined. In law, it's not about the term. It's about how the terms are defined. Anybody who has signed any serious contract, whether you buy a house or you leasing something or rent a car or buy a car or whatever, if you engage in any contract, you'll understand how in contracts they have a section of contracts for definitions. And so it'll say something like it'll use a word, and then it'll say herein called blank, and then it'll define it, and then you'll know how that word is used all throughout the rest of the contract. So people that have a problem with ADOS, then fine, don't say it. You don't have to say it out your mouth. You don't have to use it, but understand what it's defined as, though. That's the important part. Because people could just say DOS.
Yeah.
But it's
I'm thinking.
Okay.
I'm really politically illiterate, but I'm kind of thinking to like, if America was to give out reparations and they're not really understanding what ATOS mean, they would have to give reparations to the Caribbeans all the way down to Ghana, and that wouldn't be proportionate, I think.
Right. And so the way that law works, you can't see, and this is another thing. This is why people got to slow the conversation down. Black immigrants are offended or overly offended unnecessarily, and the reason why it is because of this. What ATOS agenda is pointing out is that American politicians, people who work in Congress and in government positions, they have abused ATOS folks further, even recent, even in modern times. They continue to abuse or not do anything for ATOS, but they're using immigrants to do it. So it's not the immigrants' fault. It's the politicians' fault for using them. So in other words, if you, like, let's say between me and you, if a harm was done to you and you're due restitution or some kind of compensation for that harm from somebody, let's just say Bob. So Bob owes you. But now, in order for Bob to get out of owing you or paying you back something, Bob uses me. Now, when you speak up, you got to point that out. You got to say, wait a minute, Bob. Wait, hold up. You owe me. You don't owe Wujau. Why are you using Wujau to get out of owing me or paying me? And so now I wrongly get mad at you. I'm saying, wait a minute, Kadeem, why you against me? Why you being divisive? Why you against me? You see, that's what's going on right now. Black immigrants are fussing at ATOS as if ATOS is blaming them, as if pointing to them, when the finger is being pointed at the Democrats, at the politicians, and all this and that. That's where it's going at. They're being used, and so they need to be educated on how they're being used, and the data shows it. But nobody's trying to look at the data. Nobody's even gotten that far beyond Yvette's sexuality or all these superficial conversations. Nobody even got to the data. Nobody's pulling up the data that they share and show.
Yeah, and I don't even know. I have no clue why they against Antonio neither.
I mean, they really don't have no reason, actually, and that's why his name really doesn't really come up. Everybody focus on Yvette because she's the target. She's the target. One, because well, just look at what they talk about when they bring her up. It's either she's too light skinned or she's a lesbian.
Yeah, the colorism and all this.
Yeah, they either say she's a lesbian or they get into the colorism and say she's light skinned. And she went out of her way to share her DNA results. She got a DNA test, took her test, got the results, and actually did a whole video on her DNA results, so that people could stop saying that she's biracial or whatever this other stuff that they say. So I mean, and that's our problem. We're so shallow. And so I was just trying to tell Garfield, because Garfield has a platform now, and he's using his platform to express or solidify more of his own personal bias instead of allowing it to be educational and inform people and let them make their mind up. See, Garfield,
I remember one video he said that he didn't see, but he was showing it, and I was like, "No, you can't give the audience that one." Then,
right? That was
he never saw, but he was watching it with the audience, and I'm like, "Nah."
Exactly.
Everybody didn't take it the wrong way.
Exactly. That was the irritated Jenny one. And see, See, this is the thing. If I'm going to speak on something, I'm going to do the necessary pre-work. Like I watched that Irritated Genie video twice the day before, a whole day before Garfield showed it. And so if Garfield never saw it, then why, if you look at the title of Garfield's video, Garfield is just further advancing what Irritated Genie said without even watching it. And to me, that's crazy. That is problematic. That's problematic. Yeah. You don't supposed to do that. I watched the video, and the first thing out my mouth, if I'm going to talk about Irritated Genie's video, the first thing out my mouth will be, first I would reiterate his claim, quote him, so I don't put words in his mouth, and then I would tell people that he never demonstrated or supported the claim. And then people could watch the video and find out and see if he supported the claim. He didn't. All he did was what he normally does is talk about his stance on homosexuality, which is he's anti-homophile, homophilia, whatever. He's definitely clear on that. He has a movement called Straight Black Pride and the whole nine, and that's all good. All that's good. But when you make a claim, you got to back it up, and if you can't back it up, then stop making claims. And see, this is not one of those topics that we could play with. Like, everybody trying to play with this. This ATOS movement is a modern day civil rights movement. It's just like the civil rights movement, but except in a modern time. Now we have social media.
Yeah, it's just on social media and YouTube.
Exactly. So
people are taking it as it's just entertainment, but it's not.
Right, because the times have changed. Because you're not going to see as many marches. You're not going to see a whole million people converge on the Washington Monument and the mall in D.C. You're not going to see that because we're living in a different day and time, where social media, you can reach more people faster on social media than you can by spending money and organizing a march. Because
it's like they have to title it. I guess they have to title things like web conference or something like that.
Right. They could say, the web march on Washington. I mean, people could march on Washington on the internet now. You can email your congressman. You can get a list of all the congressmen that you need and draft up a template letter that everybody sends. Everybody adds, you write a template and then let people put certain things in their own words, have everybody submit it from themselves and do it that way, which is a lot faster and more cost effective than organizing a bunch of people to gather in a place and march. Although marching is also still a good form of protest and advocacy, but we live in a different time now. So people can't look at this as just entertainment. Like, okay, I'm just gonna talk about this. ATOS is gonna be gone in 2 weeks or whatever. It's like, man. But let me ask you this: based on what you've seen about ATOS so far, if we deal with colorism, who do you see going against ATOS more, black people or white people?
Oh, I haven't seen any white people at all go against ATOS.
Right. So everybody who you do see go against or have something negative to say about it, it's been black people, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now that deserves a discussion, because we have to understand why. Why is that? And it's not just with this. It's with a lot of things that come up. We are our own worst enemy.
Yeah, it's because we're trying to cast out other black people into being European and all that. Yeah,
it's crazy. Even watching the chat on the earlier show, I'm looking at people in the chat, and some people will say about me, they say, okay, well, Joe, you're an intelligent brother. I think you're intelligent, which is why I don't understand why you support the movement and stuff. I'm like, well, when people say stuff like that, right? The first thing that comes to my mind is one, you say I'm intelligent, so you agree with that. All right, that's what you say. And so if you really believe I'm intelligent, and then you also say I support a movement, then the question becomes, what do you think I am actually supporting? Like, don't use the word movement anymore. Actually lay out what I am supporting. Like, give details. And they can't. And so this is what I'm saying. People like to use these catchphrases and oh, you're supporting the movement. Okay, well, what's the movement?
Like, also, about the video you did on Facebook last night about illogical fallacies. I like how you did that, because I saw clearly the ad hominems.
Right.
I saw that.
Yeah. I mean, that's what people do. They do ad hominems. I don't know if some people's comments were saying that I'm not black or whatever. Somebody was saying that. I don't know if they were saying it was somebody else or
yeah. So you were multiracial.
Yeah, and see, so when people make claims, see, everybody in the chat, see, if this was a real conversation, a more mature conversation, when people say stuff like that, it's supposed to stick out like a sore thumb. Because if somebody makes that claim, then I shouldn't even have to be the one to ask this. Everybody else should ask them, wait a minute, how do you know if Wujao is multiracial or whatnot? How do you know that? Like, do you know him?
Yeah.
What have you seen that allows you to know that? And see, but nobody does that. And then when I say something, then people will look at that as part of the problem. I'm engaging in the divisive conversation, because now I'm off the topic. Now I'm talking about something they don't know. And you see, and that's how it works. That's why I ignored it.
Yeah.
And I ignore it so much. Like, I'm looking at the chat. I'm trying to see the worthwhile things to respond to, but it's real. It's beyond crazy. And for the most part, most people should just stand down. Most people should just be quiet, be silent, learn first, then have a conversation. So that's why I'm gonna be pushing that. And I'm going to use this channel on whatever topic I bring up, right? It's going to be a very methodical, slow down conversation where, none of that stuff is going to be tolerated, where people can actually benefit from. Because, like, what's the point? Like, if I want to be entertained, man, I could, I got Netflix. I got, there's entertaining YouTube channels. I got Amazon Prime. I can watch Amazon movies. I can go to the movies or whatever, if I want to be entertained.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, and we need that. Entertainment is part of our life. We need that, but we gotta also have serious conversations.
Yeah, just to try to find it in everything is what's the problem.
Right. Exactly. So, that's the problems that I saw. And then the sister Kayla, I think that was Kayla that was speaking, who called in, and the stuff that she was saying, like, I can tell, like, about 75% of what she said is advocated within the ATOS movement. But if you listen to how she was saying it, she was almost saying it as if it's not. Which if that's the case, it lets me know that, she, along with others, need to be informed about the movement, need to slow down and start to study the movement first. Because one thing, this is the difference. Okay, now how Garfield has credit repair programs, and he does a very good job at that. I mean, he shows all his cases and points where he backs up the fact that he does it, and he has really good results and a really good track record. So can nobody take that from him or attempt to, because he can show and prove.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but now, because that's his focus and that's what he does, and that's what he does very well, then in his mind, right, and this is something a little bit of what the sister was saying, that we need to get ourselves together, like have financial literacy and get ourselves together. And then Garfield with the 100 man and woman movement and repairing credit and stuff like that. Like, because he shared the video where the brother used Garfield services, and then he was able to buy a house, or put to get himself into a mortgage with a house or whatever the case is. All that's good, but none of that addresses reparative justice. So my point for bringing that up is because in a conversation about reparative justice, people want to bring up things like that. Now, bringing up those things, those are beautiful things. Those are good things, and we should do them. But the problem is when you're having a discussion about reparative justice, it's a problem when you bring those things up, because you're acting like that is part of reparative justice, or that replaces reparative justice. And
okay, I see.
And it doesn't. It doesn't. Because this is to put it in a nutshell. If I owe you, let me go back to that example. It's me, you, and Bob. Okay, this imaginary person, Bob. Okay, so it's Wajao, Kadeem, and Bob. All right. Bob owes you some money. Bob owes you $1 million. Let's just say Bob owes you $1 million. Now here I come, and I'm coming to you and say, yo, Kadeem, let me show you this program right here where you can make some money. Man, if you follow my instructions, man, you could make some money. You could do this and you could do that. You'll be able to buy a car. You'll be able to do this. Now, what I'm telling you, there's no problem with it. And you'll probably listen to me and get involved with my program. But that never addresses what Bob owes you, though.
Yeah.
Bob still owes you. So that's the point. So what Garfield offers and what people are talking about when they say, hey, let's educate ourselves and become financially literate and do X, Y, and Z. Yes, that's needed. That's why I said on the phone, we could walk and chew gum at the same time. So yes.
Yeah, I was saying, I guess they were just upset about them not showing any blueprint or what to do outside of the movement, I guess.
Right, but see, again, that comes from people not understanding politics. They don't understand. It's like what's a good example? Okay, let's say, okay, I give you an example. Do you watch sports?
Barely.
Okay, well, when you do watch sports, what's your sport of choice? What's your favorite?
The NBA.
Okay, NBA, right? Okay, so name a team. Who's your team?
Let me go with Lakers.
Okay, Lakers. All right, so now you watching a Lakers game, right? Now you're not an NBA player, and you can't play in the NBA because you're not you didn't go through the qualifications. You weren't drafted. You're not hired. You're not on the team. But you like the Lakers, you support the Lakers, and you support what they do and everything like that. So now you watch them play, right? And you want them to play a certain way, and you want them to run some plays that like you think that you got some plays in your head that if they ran these plays, they would win.
Yeah.
But you can't do it.
TV.
Huh?
So you just argue at the TV.
Exactly.
What they can do.
Right. So you're gonna yell at the TV, but it's not gonna be effective. And so two things. One, you can't run the play yourself. Why? Because you're not on the team. Two, you're gonna yell at the TV. That's not gonna be effective because they can't hear you. But if you had access and front row seats right behind the bench, and you were right there while the game was playing, you had access to the coach and access to the defense defense coach and offense, whatever. I don't know how the coaches work, but if you had access to the coach right there and you had his ear, what would you be doing?
Yeah. You'd be yelling at his ear.
Right. You would be advocating your play. You would tell him your play. You would pressure him to execute your play. You can't execute it because you're not a team. You're not on the team. But you're gonna advocate to somebody. Oh, I think I'm I think my thing turned into a robot voice. Let me I'm gonna exit. Stay put. I'm gonna exit and come right back. I'm gonna exit and come right back. So yeah, I know everybody on YouTube can still hear me, but I need to because I think something happened here. Let me fix this real quick. Let's see. Give me 1 second. Get back in here. Okay, so I'm back. So can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I apologize for that. So as I was saying, so if now you can't execute your play, but you're gonna advocate to those who can execute your play, which means you're gonna go straight to the coach. You're gonna try to convince the coach to execute your play. That's advocacy. That's what ATOS movement is about. We cannot execute. We cannot execute the prescriptions, the agenda itself. We can't do it because we're not congressmen. We're not part of the legislative branch of government. So unless I'm going to run for government and actually be in that position to do something, then I have to advocate to somebody who is. That's what the movement is about. That's and so we have to. So there's an aspect of the movement where we're pressuring, we're forcing, we're yelling, we're screaming at these people. We're trying to force them to do something that we want them to do. Why? Because we can't do it ourselves. Just like you on the basketball team, you want the Lakers to execute this play, and it's gonna be a game-winning shot. It's gonna be a 3-point play, and you got it all mapped out and stuff like that, and you want them to execute this play. You can't do it, but you're gonna yell at the coach. You're gonna try to convince the coach to do it. That's the now. Let me ask you this: if the coach now, what do you think the coach would do? But between these two scenarios, you got one person, Kadeem, who is yelling at the coach, trying to convince the coach to run this particular play. The coach sees you, he hears what you're saying, and it's just you. He'll be like, man, this little guy, he don't know what he's talking about, so I ain't gonna listen to him.
Yeah.
Or
not even the offensive coordinator.
Yeah. Or what if the entire arena, the entire home people that support the home team, what if the entire arena was yelling at the coach, telling him to execute the play? Do you think the coach would be more compelled to listen then, or with just you?
He'll listen to the crowd.
Right. So ATOS advocacy, part of it is to galvanize the issues as one. Everybody has to become in sync with the issues. But guess what? We never ever get to the issues because people are talking about surface, immaterial, trivial, petty things. Whether Yvette is too light-skinned, whether she get biracial or not, who she sleep with, whether Antonio block this person or that person and stuff like that. We never even get to the issues to see if we can galvanize and agree on pushing it. You see what I'm saying?
It's too Hollywood right now.
Right. Okay. So I see we got Admiral Majay. Listen, if you scroll up, you'll see the link to come in here. Matter of fact, let me post it again. So here's a link if you want to talk instead of type to the brother. This is to the brother Admiral, and this is to anybody else who's listening, because I don't know who's listening unless somebody type inside the chat.
Yeah, but, if you have to the chat too, I think you need to hop on.
Yeah, if you want to talk instead of type. But let me see. He says, Wujao, I'm at the shooting range, so I can't watch it right now. But you better believe I'm gonna catch that playback later on. So have a nice build. Oh, okay. So he's not able to hop on, which is fine. But so okay, since he's gonna watch this, let me make my comments respond to some of his comments he made earlier. So again, this brother, some of the things he was saying was that, first of all, he assumes that I assume that I'm more educated or more intelligent than others and whatnot. And see, in my lifetime, where I come from, when people say that, they say it from a position of themselves. Like it's something that's in them that's their assumption. Like it's we call it projecting. And so people project when they do that. And that's, it's not beneficial to do that. Because one, I don't think that I'm more educated than other people. I wouldn't make that blanket statement like that ever, because it's specific topics that I may be more educated on than other people. Like, like when it comes to the Egyptian language or something like that, then I'll say, hey, I that's my focus. I have a little specialty in that. And so when I see other people talking about that, I can say, well, wait a minute, I have more experience in that than you do, or whatever. So that's not my style to say I'm more educated than other people. Even though, my education, I did really, really good in school. Straight A and B student all throughout elementary, junior high, high school, junior honor society, regular honor society. Scored real high on my SATs. Went to University of Maryland. Dealt with been with computer programming and all this stuff pretty much all my adult life, and started in junior high school. COBOL, Fortran, and Pascal was my first computer languages. Went to college, computer engineering. So I could say all that stuff, but even in all of that, now I don't have a degree, because I came out of University of Maryland before getting my degree. So, but even with all of my education, I would still never say I'm more educated than anybody.
You just educated in those fields.
Yeah, I'm educated in what I'm educated in. And see, nobody really has to say that though. Like really, nobody should have to say that, because it'll show in what you say. It'll really show in what you say. Like if I, let's say you bring up a conversation about auto repair, like fixing cars and stuff. And if I'm not competent in that, and I start opening my mouth and talk, it's gonna show. It's like, cause I'm clueless when it comes to cars. Like I can change my brakes, I could change the tire, I know where the radiator is, I know how to check the oil, I know how to check the fluids. But when it comes to anything other side of that, man, I'm done. And see, when what we we gotta acknowledge our strengths and weaknesses, as well. You know what I mean? Because like I said, like if you brought up a conversation about auto repair, I'm gonna be quiet.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna be quiet, and if I got questions, I'm gonna be like, hey, so wait a minute, what is the carburetor? Do cars still have a carburetor today? Like I know back in the day you got the carburetor, but I'm gonna ask stuff like that. I'm like what about hybrids? What's different between hybrids? Do they run off gas and electric, or stuff like that? But I'm not gonna sit here and be coming to conclusions and offering my opinion and creating YouTube videos.
You're gonna have to ask questions first.
Exactly, and that's what people are not doing. I have yet, on any of Garfield's shows where he discusses ATOS, I have yet, outside of the show that I suggested and the one we did, because remember, Garfield did an initial show, and it was during that show that I was in a chat, and I suggested to Garfield, even on the inbox on Facebook, I said, listen, Garfield, it would be better if you form a panel and have a panel discussion about ATOS, where you can actually walk through the agenda, the website. And that's what we end up doing. We tried to. We did it, to the extent that it did. But I'm the one that made that suggestion. But outside of that, never nobody on the videos after that did he walk through what is actually being advocated by Antonio or Yvette or other people? And see, and this is another thing. People focus on Antonio and Yvette, but they forget that Yvette and Antonio have almost going on 3 years worth of crunching data, and can't nobody mess with the data.
Yeah.
Nobody is messing with the data. Nobody is trying to refute the data. And frankly, a lot of people don't know about the data because they can't get past all the other trivial stuff. And on top of that, it's not just them. So Antonio is a lawyer. So that adds to his credibility. So nobody really has a problem with Antonio. That's why all the focus is on Yvette, because Yvette's not the lawyer. Yvette, she worked on Capitol Hill. She dealt with politicians before and stuff like that. But that's not enough. So they still focus on her. But they don't even check the people that they work with. William Darity, his nickname Sandy Darity. His work, he is actively involved, champion the whole ATOS movement as well. You got Derek Hamilton, another person. You got Cosby. I forgot his first name. Brother, last name is Cosby. Also, these are professionals. William Darity is a PhD professor, author, economist. He's been talking and doing this stuff for years.
Yes, yeah, I never heard of him as being spoken of before.
Right, people are not bringing him up because they haven't even got that far. So that's the problem with this community, is that, it's real shallow, man. It's real shallow, and people got to stop that. So
yeah,
like I said,
they got your head under the scope.
Yeah, and I mean, and see, she could speak on her own behalf. Like she don't need people to even defend her. The problem is when that takes over the conversation. That's the problem I have. Like I don't know Yvette. I never met her. For me to talk about her or defend her personal life and stuff like that. But when conversations about her, cloud and clog the issues that should be talked about, that's when I have an issue. That's when I speak up and say something. And people interpret that as me defending Yvette or whatever the case is. And so it's crazy when people say that and do that. Well, I'm trying to switch this picture here. Okay, there we go. All right, so when y'all talk, people can see who's talking and not just keep seeing me. But anyway, so I see we have Juju on. Peace, Juju. What's going on? I don't know if you could talk, but if you can, just saying, give me a shout out. Peace to you.
What's up? Rajal, were you talking to me? My apologies.
Huh? Say it again.
Were you talking to me? My apologies.
Oh no, I was just saying peace to you and giving you a shout out.
Thank you.
I see you popped in and everything.
I'm still in Tallahassee. We're still talking to legislation about reform, but I saw the class or the show, so I wanted to join in while I had some downtime.
Okay, let me ask you this. So now I don't know if you could talk, but you sound like real loud. So I don't know if you gotta pull your phone back a little bit. But let me ask you this. So you're in Tallahassee and you're advocating what kind of reform? What are you doing?
Yes, Rajal, I'm on my phone. I'm actually waiting to speak to a representative now, a senator actually.
Okay, so yeah, well after you're done, just come on back through.
It'll be a few minutes, but I'm not going to stay live, and then I'll chime back in when I'm through. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
Okay. All right, hold up. Peace. Okay, so yeah, I was going to ask the sister a couple of questions about what she's doing. See, now what she's doing is called advocacy. She's about to talk to somebody who is in a position to execute something or leading to it. whatever the case is. So
You do.
right. So that's the point. So now, okay, now check this out. So I'm gonna use her as an example. Now, obviously, before she went to where she is, and before she's gonna open her mouth to who she's gonna open her mouth to, obviously she had to educate herself on the issues. She's not gonna just go there, blind or totally uninformed. And so, but that's what's happening with the ATOS movement as a whole. People got so much to say, but they're not taking the time out to inform themselves about what's going on. So I want to say peace to whoever's watching, because like I said, I'm not sure who's watching. I'm live, completely unannounced. I started off last week with only having a few subscribers, so I've never used this channel, but I'm gonna start using it. So I appreciate anybody who has recently subscribed, and if you subscribe to this channel, make sure that you click the bell too, so that you'll be notified when I go live. But I'm gonna have like scheduled discussions. So unlike what I do on Facebook, I'll go live out the blue, because Facebook, I know, notifies people. But on here on YouTube, I'm gonna like schedule some discussions where I'll have it scheduled. The title will be there. So if you're interested and you want to chime in, and my discussions that I want them to be interactive. I don't the chat is fine, but I prefer people to come on the panel. And so the way I have it set up is that I can have up to 100 people, so myself and 99 other people to come on in here. So we can have a whole panel of 100 people, 100 of us having a really good discussion. Okay, that's the limit that I have right now with this. So those are the kind of discussions I want to have, no matter who or how many, but those are the kind of discussions I want to have. Interactive discussions, not just some, quick typing back and forth and people saying, expressing their feelings and opinions. All right, so anyway. But continue. You about to say something? What were you saying?
I was about to say anything, but I was about the typing and stuff. That's like a real delay in communication.
Yeah, true, exactly. Because by the time we say something, it's like a 30-second delay from us here and then what's broadcast out. I noticed that when I was calling the Garfield as well. But yeah, this ATOS movement is a continuation of an ongoing movement. It's not new. And what's really funny is that people will say that. People will say, ATOS is nothing new. But then at the same time, they'll say it's a fad. So how can it be a fad if it's a movement that has been here and it's ongoing? So when they say that, what they're essentially doing, they're reducing the modern conversation, the recent conversations, and they're reducing it into a fad. But
yeah, because I believe the way that Juju is doing it, people would probably take the wrong approach as to how she's doing it. Because for them and how social media runs, they would think going viral would be more effective than what she's doing.
Exactly. But you got to get in the ear of these politicians on a local level, the state level, and the federal level. We got to get in the ear of these politicians. But the only way we're going to get in the ear is by advocacy, education. And see, this is what Yvette and Antonio push, and everybody should just understand this. First you educate, then you advocate. You got to educate yourself, and then you got to pressure, because advocacy means to convince, to push, to champion behind, to support, all those synonyms, ideas is behind what advocacy is. You advocate something, that means that you're pushing it. You're applying pressure. And how you going to do that if you don't know? And so education is the first step. And when I put that in the comments on Garfield Show, some people were saying, some person was saying something about that. You know, and I'm like, man, what is it then? What is it? It's like, man, do we love just the drama that much to where we can't even we just stop using just some straight like
We just stop being logical.
Right.
Like I feel like, for example, like how people go about with vaccinations, like they go by based on what memes and these 30-second videos go by, and I'm like, okay, you say it's aluminum inside the vaccines, but it's not really raw aluminum. If you educate yourself about it, you'll find out it's just aluminum phosphate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they don't comprehend what that is, so you got to do the study.
Right. And listen, man, that's why I always push education. Like, I'm an educator. I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher for a lot of my adult life in some form or capacity. Not in a school setting like a elementary, junior high, or high school, but in pretty much everything that I've done, I've been in a teacher's role. Like even at jobs in a computer field, I was training and teaching people who made more money than me, only because I was younger and whatnot. I was more qualified, I was more trained, and I was training other people. But because they had degrees and they were older than me, they made more money than me. But here I am training people, which is kind of crazy. But I say that to say that like my thing is education, is informing people. So from my perspective, because that's what I have done for a very long time, it's real easy for me to see it that way, and I get it, because not everybody's gonna see it the same way. But there's some fundamental common sense that has to be understood. That before you open your mouth about a topic, you need to know about the topic. It doesn't take me to be an educator or a teacher to have that understanding. That should be common to all of us. That, you know, and see, people gotta understand that this particular topic, reparative justice, is a legal issue. It is a legislative, political issue. Because when you say legislative, you're talking about laws, which is legal. So legal can be two things. You got the executive branch of government, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch. Both the legislative and judicial branch can fall under legal, but the judicial branch of government enforces and rules on the established laws. The legislative branch is the branch that makes the laws.
Yeah. So
this reparative justice claim is going through the legislative aspect, not the judicial. So we're not, this is not to march up into the courts and to, prove any case or whatever case is. This is actually on the legislative level to try to get programs and policies put into law that will unfold a reparative justice program. And it could be over a long period of time, or a certain amount of time. That's what it's about. That's what this advocacy is about. It's about putting laws in the books that will repair the victims of the institution of slavery and their descendants, because they're not here anymore. So as a result, and this is why people got to understand dynastic wealth. They got to understand the laws of succession. They got to understand the laws concerning heir, like an heir to an estate. They got to understand the laws of lineal descent and all these kinds of things. To even understand this, like for example, go ahead.
No, I was saying that's not really discussed much, because those sound really new to me.
Right. Nah, it's not. Like nobody even gets to that point yet. Nobody gets to that point. Everybody has a problem. Like we can't even get past the acronym. ADOS. So let's do this right now. I'm just gonna explain something, and like I said, I don't know how many people watching right now, but I'm gonna be repeating this when I have future discussions about this. But I'm just gonna say this now, which is okay. So like for example, when we say ADOS, whether people want to take the A off or they want to make the A African, all that's immaterial. It's irrelevant, really, because when it comes down to it, it's what are you identifying? Like for example, if somebody commits a crime and they're caught on videotape committing the crime, like it's clear as day, it's like a HD DVD copy of them robbing a bank. Let's just say somebody robbed a bank and they have no mask, no nothing, and it's like real clear, like they look straight into the camera, like close up, almost like they pose for the camera and everything like that. No matter what that person's name is, if you were an employee in that bank and you were victimized by the robbery and you had to identify the perpetrator, the person who robbed the bank, you don't know that person from a can of paint. You don't know their name, but yet you can identify them. And the reason why I say that is because the acronym is helpful, but it's not the end all be all, and it's not material to the actual identity of who you're talking about as the victims or the descendants of these victims involved with this reparative justice claim. So everybody that's arguing over the A, the D, the O, and the S, it's really a waste of time because it's all in how it's defined. And so this is what I'm explaining right now. So when we say ADOS, the A is defined. Now we say it as American descendants of slavery, but American, we have to define that. So,
Yeah.
so what does that mean? So that's where the focus should be in. Okay, so what does that mean? So what it means is it's talking about it's talking about the United States of America, lineal descendants of victims of colonial and or United States of America slavery and or black codes or United States of America Jim Crow. That's what ADOS is identifying. They're identifying the United States of America lineal descendants of the victims of colonial and or the United States of America slavery and or black codes and United States of America Jim Crow. That's what it's defined as.
Okay, see, people can probably take that out of context. Like with the Aboriginals, they probably would say that you got North America and you got South America. So they were talking about America, the whole Americas.
Exactly. So that's why it's defined as the United States of America, lineal descendants of victims of colonial and the United States of America slavery and or black codes or the United States of America Jim Crow. So black codes, Jim Crow, colonial, and the United States of America slavery. So that's what it's talking about. So can't nobody get around that. Can't nobody say, oh, we're Central America, South America, North America, Canada is in Americas. They can't run that. So that's what ADOS is identifying. So now to even drill down further, what does that mean? So ancestral lineal descent from a victim. So we have to identify the victims. These are victims who are born in the United States of America prior to 1942. Can't get any more narrow than that. So that's one aspect. That's a qualifier. Next, now we got to talk about the original victim because those are lineal descents. So if you are a descendant from a victim who was born in the United States of America prior to 1942, then bam, put a check mark. Next, the original victim has to have been classified as black, Negro, colored, African American, Afro American, Black American, mulatto, etc. If that's the case, check. Now, claim holder, that would be us today. The claim holder, the person who will be an heir or inherit the claim. And people got to understand how these laws work. The claim holder themselves, which is the modern day people, like somebody like me, I would have to be classified at birth now, not something that I do just today, but at birth I have to have been classified as black, Negro, colored, African American, Afro American, or Black American, etc. That's another qualifier. Boom, put a check right there. And then there's some other inclusion and exclusion statements that have to be sifted out. For example, the original victim cannot be classified as a tribal member of a sovereign treaty status Native American tribe. And for people who not familiar with that, it's those so-called 5 civilized tribes that the American government calls the 5 civilized tribes that they have a sovereign treaty status with the United States government and federal protection and all that other kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that adds more clarification to it. So, but see, nobody even drills down this far to even have these discussions, to even talk about what I'm saying right now. People not talking about this. And another inclusion exclusion statement is that this whole thing excludes those who ancestry claim is based solely on commercial DNA testing. That ain't gonna cut it. That's not gonna cut it. You can't only rely on the commercial DNA testing, not because the commercial DNA testing is not is like a hoax or anything like that, but your DNA testing, number one, it's not gonna tell you who your descendants are by name. It's not gonna identify your descendants, because the only way that I can tell if you are directly related to individuals, like individual people, is if those people also took a DNA test. Like, for example, you got any brothers and sisters?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you got your DNA sequence and then one of your siblings got their DNA sequence, comparing yours and theirs, they will be able to tell that you are related and the fact that you all are siblings. But it's only because they have access to both you all's genome sequence and they can compare the two.
Oh.
But if they don't have the genome sequence of your relative, they can't tell or establish the relationship. So DNA testing, when it comes back with those percentages, those are populations. Those are not mapped to individuals. You see what I'm saying? So when people bring up, is the ATOS people going to use DNA? Are they going to use DNA testing? No. You can't use that. And which is a valid question, but if people understand this and educate themselves, then that question will fall away and go away. Hopefully, people won't have to ask that question because they'll understand that it doesn't have a place in this. So with that, people have to understand the laws that govern descent and succession and how things are passed down and so on and so forth.
Right. So you said the DNA does not work for that?
No, DNA is not going to work unless they have the DNA of the member that you're trying to compare to. Then it's not gonna be applicable.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You see, you know what I'm saying. So you have to be able to show that you are a descendant from like what I was just saying. Like, you have to show that you are, as a claim holder, that you're classified as Black, Negro, colored, African American, or Afro American, or Black American, etc. That's for you. But then you also have to show that you are a lineal descendant from someone who was born in the United States of America prior to 1942, and that someone is also classified as black, Negro, colored, African American, Afro American, Black American, etc.
Okay, right.
You see what I'm saying? So now we're getting a little more narrower and more clarification. And these recommendations now that could change, but that's what's on the tables right now, because William Darity, he gave a proposal of at least one of your parents has to fit this description I just said. Through one of your parents, you have to be able to do this. And his number 2 point is that you have to have be listed yourself, self-identified as African American or Black or colored or Negro for at least 10 years. Now, that is being fine-tuned because we don't know how long the reparative justice would take. So for example, let's say that Congress agrees with reparations, right? And they set up a plan to implement it 20 years from now. So the proposal by Sandy Darity will open the door for people to claim to be Black right now, and then 20 years from now they would fit his criteria of being claimed Black for 10 years. You see, and that's not cool. That would be a loophole. And so that is being tightened up to the fact that you have to be classified as such at birth. Then that closed the loophole. If you're not classified as these things at birth, then hey, nah, buddy. You can't just up today, because 2020 census is coming up. So if I feel that reparations is about to come down and I really don't qualify, but all I gotta do is just check the box for Black on the 20 census, then that's what people are gonna be doing.
Yeah, I mean, my parents, they're Jamaican, but I mean, I write Black. I've been writing Black ever before my write on. I don't put, Caribbean.
Oh, but now.
Black.
Okay, but now check this out. Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but are you aware that the 2020 census has changed? The questions, the form has changed. So if you're not, you should go to
I have it.
Yeah, if you go to the website, you can actually see what the questions are going to be now, and they've changed it. They have 2 separate questions or blocks where you can write your race and your ethnicity. So now they separated it. So if you check Black, now you have an opportunity to be specific. You could say Black, and then you could put Jamaican, or you could say Black and put Haitian, or you could put Black and whatever else.
Okay.
Yep, you can do that now. So they're separating the race and the ethnicity questions to allow people to fill it in detail. So if you say I'm African, if you say I'm Black, then you could put African American, or because that's the legal term that they're going to be using on there. So instead of putting Black and then ATOS, people will put Black and African American. But if you're from Jamaica, you would put Black and then Jamaican. And see, and people got to understand why.
I mean, I was born here though, so that meant me African American.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Nah. When you get the question I wish I could show it. I don't know if I could. I don't have it to show it. But if you look at it, it'll make sense to you, because it's talking about your heritage, your and I think they have the definite. Matter of fact, let me see if I can pull it up, because they have the definitions on there. Like what the census. Is it in this? Okay, nah, it's not in. I thought I had it already. But see, maybe I'll do. Maybe that'll be like one of the first discussions we have. Like, what would an ATOS group of people look like? And I don't mean. Yeah, like what are the qualifications? At least right now, because like I said, this thing is still a work in progress. And so as of right now, the things I just shared is what's on the table, and it may be fine tuned even more. But as of right now, these are the things that are there. But I don't have the other thing readily available. But they define what white is. They define what black is. They define Latin, Hispanic, and Latino question. You know, that part of the question. So they define all these things. So you'll be able to know what to fill in. But people gotta understand, what is the census good for? Like, why is there a such thing as the census? What is it used for? And people could look into that. It's a whole thing that people should be educated on. But in gist, one thing people should be aware that the census is used for a statistic and demographics on government policies and government programs and policies and even in the political arena in terms of districts and things like that, based on demographics, and to take account of the citizenship, because see, what people have to understand is that the reason why individuals are not sovereign is because when you become a citizen of a country or a nation, and you become one of its nationals as a member, what you're doing is you're creating an agreement. You are giving up your sovereignty for protection by the government. In a nutshell, of course, it's more to it than what I'm saying, but in a nutshell, you are giving up your individual sovereignty, like your personal sovereignty, to become a member of a larger class or group, and that larger group or entity is supposed to give you something in return. And so you're surrendering your sovereignty to gain the protection and access to government and the protections thereof. And some of these protections are identified as civil rights, which is a right to have rights, and all these other kinds of things. And like I said, there's a whole lot more to this, but these are fundamentals that people have to understand. And so for us to live in this country and be its citizens, and then we turn our back on politics, is crazy. Because what we're doing is we're allowing other people other than us to control our lives. Period.
Yeah, I think other races are using politics more than we are.
Right. Let me see. We have a D on deck. Let's see. First of all, peace. It says the U.S. to pay out new reparations for Holocaust, February 6, 2019. Payments to date on approved claims total $30 million, according to the State Department, with the additional payment of 97% of their prior approved claim amount. Living survivors will receive in total $401,000. You might round it up, $402,000. Living surviving spouses would receive up to $100,000, and heirs of survivors and surviving spouses will receive a portion of these amounts, proving lineage should go back to 1920 as a starting point. Okay. Now D on deck, if you want to come here and kind of elaborate on that, you can click the link. I put the link. I can put it again. Here's the link if you want to come in here, or you can elaborate more. But that's one of the things that comes to people's minds when you think of reparations. You think of the Jewish Holocaust, and you think of the reparations that Germany paid and established with them. Not only that, but man, you got a group of people who received an entire state. And on a world stage, a state is equivalent, basically to a country. So this, when we say the state of Israel, we're talking about a nation, a country. Nation states, or these states, like on a world level, on a level of worldly global things. United States is a state. Like at the United Nations, you got these different states.
Yeah.
Not like how we think in the United States, where somebody's in Florida, somebody's in New York. Those are states to us. But see, those states, in essence, those states are the same as countries. But like I was saying about individuals, the states themselves surrendered their sovereignty to an extent to join a union. And this union is called the Federal Union, which is the United States of America. So every state has a governor, and the governor would be equivalent to the president of that particular state. And in order for the state to join this union, is a trade-off. Every state had to give up its total sovereignty, and they retain limited sovereignty, but they gave up some of that sovereignty to become members of the union. And now the union apparatus has to protect them. So if, for example, if a foreign country attacks Florida, for example, the United States government is responsible for protecting Florida, not Florida. And this is why states cannot have their own military to the extent that the federal government does, or the U.S. military, because they have what they call every state has what do you call it? Not Coast Guard, but I don't know why I always forget what it is. Not the Coast Guard, but man, I do that every time. It's something guard, armor, whatever. But
National Guard, right?
No, not the National Guard. Cause National be it's dang, why can't I think of the name of that? I don't know why Coast Guard is stuck in my head. Coast Guard is for ships and things.
But like, you mean the military that comes into the city whenever it's like a riot or something like that?
Yeah, the states military, not the police force and stuff. It's the level above all of that. National Guard. That sounds. But anyway, I have to look it up. So nobody quotes me on that. But everybody should be familiar with what I'm talking about. Every state has a like the equivalent, but it's not on the level of the United States military. Excuse me, it's not on the level of the military, or whatever the case is. But my point, though, is what I was saying is that our relationship to our government is like a parent to child. We give up our sovereign rights in exchange for protection and access. And if we don't take advantage of that access, we may never get the protection. And so as African Americans in this country, we have been shut out of access and therefore out of the protection. And because we're not protected, or the protection has not been enforced, we have become the bottom failure class, called black. And so this is something people have to understand, which is what we're fighting for. We're fighting to regain access to government. And by gaining access to government, we need our demands met, because government is supposed to be for and of and by the people. And so we need to participate in politics. And so people are never even going to get to this part of the conversation if they so gung-ho about somebody's how somebody look, or all the gossip.
Yeah, we can't really treat politicians like movie stars or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we have to go there and really have a discussion with them.
Exactly. So we have to keep all this stuff in mind. So if we don't participate in politics, then we are allowing ourselves to be controlled and never having our own agency. And so this is where ADOS comes into play, where a boundary has to be set. First, you have to identify the collective, and people had a problem with that. So if I say that I am, because okay, in America we have this generalized black. Okay, if you're not white and you don't look Hispanic or whatever, it's based on looks and some more other superficial things where they just put you in a category of black. Out of that broad category of black, now we have to be a little more definitive. So now ADOS steps in and says, okay, we have this subgroup of black as descendants of victims of slavery. Then you have another subgroup of black who are not. They are a result of coming here, immigrating here. Now, those two groups of blacks should not be at odds with each other. That's just a statement of fact. Like that's not to make an enemy out of one or the other. It's just for the purpose of identity. And so one group has a justice claim, the other group doesn't. At least not in America. They have a justice claim. Like Caribbeans, the people in the Caribbeans have a justice claim, just like ADOS has a justice claim. It's just that your target is going to be different. ADOS is targeting the United States government, whereas the Caribbean nations is targeting for other nations. See, we're the only ones that's actually targeting our own government. Jamaicans are not Jamaicans are not trying to get reparative justice from the Jamaican government. They're getting reparative justice from Britain, England,
the UK,
the UK, Ireland, and companies out of that. So we're in a different situation. We are going after our own government for how it treated us, its children. And because when you humanize a situation, you got to look at it as a parent-child situation. So we've had abusive parents. The United States government has been abusive towards its children, which are, and that's how we got to look at it. So now we are targeting the government and saying, look, you have abused us all this time. You owe us, because through your abuse, it has kept us on the bottom, and it has enriched you. So repair us to a state, excuse me, to a state where, had you not abused us, we would be in. That's what reparative justice is about. It's about repairing or putting someone back in a position of health to make them whole again, as if the damage never occurred. That's what it's about. And so that's what people have to become familiar with. But nobody's having that kind of conversation, because if I talk like that, like based on what I just said, like the little bit I've been saying, since we've been on, really nobody can really argue against the things I'm saying. But the moment that I get real trivial and petty and I say, oh man, immigrants are responsible for bringing AIDS into the country, immigrants are this, see, that's all the gossipy fluff petty stuff that has nothing to do with nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with nothing. Pan-Africanism is not dead. It's alive. It's dead. It's alive. Well, listen, guess what? Pan-Africanism has no place in this justice claim.
Right.
There's no
It's
such.
not really about Africa.
Right, and there's no such thing as Africa in terms of politics and law. There's no political entity called Africa. There's no political entity.
There's no political entity as Europe.
Exactly. Now you have a European Union, you got an African Union, and you got these different organizations that are regional. You got the East African region, and so certain things are done regionally in Africa and so on and so forth. But now check this out. Now I had this discussion last night, so I'm gonna ask you, right? If okay, let me show you. I'm gonna show you something. I'm gonna show you because I had this discussion when I had something on my screen. So I'm gonna show it to you, and I'm gonna ask you the same question. So give me a moment. Yeah, and if you got something else to comment about, go ahead, because I want to find something real quick, and I want to show this to you.
Yeah, now I'm just feeling like I guess people feel like, as in like, the family example, I think people feel like their older brother is gonna get more money than they do when their parents give them money. So,
Hmm.
or maybe they might feel like they're not gonna get anything at all, but their older sibling will.
Hmm. Well, that I think that's to that, but it doesn't have to be that way because it's now in my experience of having these conversations, I know that to be true. At least in the conversations that I've had, because people that have a problem with ADOS, as far as being a black immigrant that have a problem with ADOS, they think that ADOS is advocating that black immigrants should not be entitled to anything, or any policies and programs. And that's not what ADOS advocacy is saying. What it's saying is that black immigrants should get whatever benefits, whatever demands and needs that it has, but it should not be in place of those things that should be only dealing for ADOS for what ADOS has suffered and went through this country for the past 400 years.
Yeah, that exclusively.
Yeah, it's different. It goes back to my example that if Bob owed you $1 million, but here I come and I'm telling you, hey man, I got a program where you can make some money, and then you take my advice and you make some money, that still says nothing about what Bob owes you. So black immigrants, whatever their interests and demands and needs are, they petition the government for that and allow it to happen. But see what the government ends up doing or has done, they'll use that because they label all of us black, this flat black, they'll use that as an excuse to make it appear like they're helping out the ADOS as well, because they throw everybody in the same bucket. You see? And so that's not the way to go. Okay, so let me show you this. I want to share. I'm gonna share this. Oh, wait a minute. Cause I want to ask you a question, and this is again. I like to. As you know, already know. I like to use visuals, and
You showing it on YouTube or Zoom?
it's gonna show up on both. I'm trying to see, where is it? Is this it? Nope. Okay, wait 1 second. Got a problem here. Let's see, where we at? Oh, duh. Here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna show you this right here. Can you see that?
Yeah, the shoes.
Okay, now. All right, so I'm gonna ask you. You're from Jamaica, right? I mean, your parents and everything, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now this is the Jamaican flag, but obviously it's put into a circle and it's on shoes. Now, a lot of Jamaicans. Now, let me ask you: would you wear these?
Yeah.
Okay, so now a lot of Jamaicans would wear this or something like this, right? With the flag on it, whether it's a T-shirt with the flag on it, or some shoes like this, or whatever the case is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and they will proudly wear it. They wear it. They have no problem with it whatsoever. Okay, so let me show you another one. Let's see. Give me a second. Show another example. I mean, I'm making a point, so bear with me if anybody's watching. Just want to make a point. I know it's like one of those long-winded points, but hey, I like to use visuals because it leaves no room, whatever the case is. Okay, so now check this one out. Okay, now you see these right here, right?
Yeah.
Now, do you recognize that emblem?
Yeah, that's a candy, right?
Yeah. Okay, now that's the Kenyan flag. Okay, the other one was Jamaican, for Jamaica, the flag of Jamaica, and this is the
Yeah.
flag of Kenya. Now, Kenyans would a lot of Kenyans would probably wear these shoes or something like it. Like they would wear something that reflects, that has their flag on it and everything like that, right?
Yeah, and it looks cool, but
Okay. So now check this out. So now, because I can show you a whole bunch more, but I think my point can be made now. So now, as a Jamaican, you would proudly wear your flag, or any item with your flag on it, and the whole nine. Kenya, same thing. Uganda, same thing. Okay. Nigeria, same thing. Haiti, same thing. You see it all the time. You see it on Facebook or whatever the case is. Now, when it comes to ADOS, do you think a person who is ADOS would rock shoes like this with the American flag in it?
mm, probably so. I
You
mean,
think
they
so?
probably have to. I mean, they have to represent the flag, the
No,
ADO.
I'm saying based on the conversations that we've had about ADOS and all this other kind of stuff, whether it's Facebook or YouTube, um,
Yeah.
do you think the ADOS folks would quickly wear something like this, like how Jamaicans or Kenyans, like for example, would rock their flag and stuff like that?
Yeah, I don't really know.
Okay, so that's good. That's all right. Well, that's good because I wanted your opinion on that. Now, in my discussion that I had, uh, the now you're the only person that said that you think so. So let me let you know because everybody else, everybody else was saying not really, and the reason why is because African Americans don't look at America as theirs. See,
Yeah, but say that there was bias about the government, so I don't think they would really wrap the flag like that.
okay, yeah, that's pretty much what was said yesterday from everybody that asked. What you just said,
Uh,
is pretty much what everybody was saying, is the fact that because the United States, because see, and so this is what sparked the discussion, and I want to have a whole discussion on this, so I'm gonna touch on it right now, but we need to have a discussion on why there's a difference between what we just showed, the fact that you would happily wear a Jamaican flag shirt or some shoes with a Jamaican flag on there. Somebody from Kenya would wear these shoes or whatever the case is. But when it comes to ADOS, there's a real big hesitation for anybody to wear an American flag shirt or some shoes with the American flag on it or whatnot. And there's a reason why that's like that, and it's because ADOS in this country, we are in a perpetual mental state of outsidership, like
yeah,
outsiderism.
or protest, in a sense.
Yeah, listen, we are citizens of this country, we are nationals of this country, of this nation, but yet we still have an outsider's mental position. We see ourselves as outsiders, and so that has to change. So that is also part of the ADOS advocacy. We're trying to educate people and advocate that no, that is an old mentality.
Yeah,
We have to upgrade our mentality and understand that this country is ours. Our ancestors built it. We are citizens of this country. We're nationals of this country. So we better participate in its politics if we ever want to get things that we want. Otherwise, we might as well just pack up and leave. Because why stay here generationally, keep having children here and staying here, but yet never participating and always being on the outside of things.
yeah, not trying to seek ownership of what we already built.
Exactly. And so that is part of what ADOS is advocating, is trying to educate and inform people on and about. So, but see, we can never get to that part of the conversation, because people are not even, they can't get past the acronym, or whatever. Understand? So anyway, I just wanted to ask you that to see what your thoughts, because you said that you are you have Jamaican heritage. So it is a difference. There's a difference. Like you, like outside of something looking cool or not, I'm sure you wouldn't hesitate to rock a Jamaican flag, something, you know,
Yeah,
especially your
like I said,
parents.
most of my point of view is American, so I mean I can see how people are thinking,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean,
Boy,
I don't think it have nothing to do with me being a Jamaican or whatever. The fact is, it's just that in my support, it's more I have to support more of America than Jamaica
yeah,
since I'm already a citizen.
right, exactly. Well, see, and that's understood, but see, you, or I mean, I'm only saying you because I'm talking to you, and then the fact that your parents are from Jamaica, so you have like a heritage that is outside of the United States that you are fully aware of, because your parents are actually from Jamaica itself. So it's like you're just one generation away.
Yeah.
Whereas most ADOS, we don't have that. We don't have that ability. All we know is, when we go to these commercial DNA testing, we'll know that we're from West Africa, or if we go to African
Um,
Ancestry .com, they may be able to narrow it down to somebody, but we don't have a psychological chain for that though. Even if we were told, see, it's different, because you're, well, like with you, for example, you know it, and you can live it, like you have access to that, whereas we don't. So it's no problem for somebody like you, or let's say a Kenyan American, or Haitian American, or Nigerian American.
uh-huh.
You you feel comfortable and prideful about your flag, your country, and all this other kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas ADOS, we don't have that. So it's like, okay, I was born
It's
in.
rebellious.
Yeah. We have this outsider, perpetual outsider mentality, which is outdated. We can't function while being in that mental state. And so this is what the one of the things that ADOS is trying to rectify. And it's sad that we can't even get to that point in the conversation. But it's a big problem. It's a big problem. Like, like I showed this shirt right here. If you can see it on screen, this shirt and these shoes, like a person from Kenya, they'd be like, "Oh man, yo, where can I get that from?"
Yeah.
No problem, none. Like they're like, "Oh, that's man, give me that." They're like, "Yeah, I'll be the first to get that." But now imagine if instead of that Kenyan flag on the bottom of that shirt, imagine if it was red, the stars and stripes, the American flag. Man,
Yeah.
most ADOS would pass that up. They wouldn't buy that because
Yeah, 'cause, like we trip out on each other on the 4th of July.
yeah, it's like, well, yeah, the independence, because it was, while European Americans were celebrating their independence, we were a slave. Our ancestors were suffering from institution of slavery. So that's
Yeah.
that's where people don't want to deal with that. But
Yeah, they just get mad just for wearing the clothing.
yeah, exactly. So anyway,
Asaki, I didn't mean to cut y'all off. I just
oh,
wanted to
hey,
let
hey, peace. Hey, listen, if you got something to chime in on, because I'm just running my mouth.
yeah, while you on this topic, I kind of seen you going in this direction when you first started, but I wanted to point out another one of the psychological ills we have since you brought that up, because I kind of seen you going towards the American flag and how most would rebel against it. But what's ironic is if you replaced it with the California state flag, if you put the NY on there, if you put ATL, most of us wouldn't hesitate to do it then. But then you look at the flag and I don't want to cuss, but the first thing out their mouth is going to be, that's white people. Shh, you get where I'm going. So they don't want to do it, which is ironic to think, because how can you proclaim these cities to be yours, these streets to be yours, these blocks to be yours, but when you say the country itself, you don't want no parts of it and you exclude yourself from it? That's just thinking less than, because why not try to, like you said, proclaim the country to be yours as well, if you get where I'm going with that. Even on the mental frame, we know we have to combat against it. I won't deny that, as far as paving a place for us out in it. But I seen where you was going with that. I just wanted to add on to that point that you wouldn't see them hesitate to do those things, which I find it counterproductive, and it's just ironic to me to see that, if you get where I'm going. Because if you put those same logos, if you replaced it with an L and an A, they wouldn't hesitate to buy it.
Yeah.
If you, but you absolutely right. You put that flag on there, they're gonna think that they're rebelling against the system by saying, "I'm not wearing that," but you contribute to the state that's part of the same body of it. If you get what I'm trying to say on the mass whole.
No, yeah, and that's a good point. And to add on, because you're exactly right. And what's funny is that people will proudly represent area codes. Like they say, I'm from the 315, or I'm from the 305, or I'm from the 202, and represent area codes that they had no participation in creating. Like zip codes, like people will represent zip codes, people will represent telephone area codes that they never created. People will represent basketball team franchise that they never created, that doesn't even benefit them directly at all. People will wear, jerseys and all this other kind of stuff. So it's something that has to be addressed. And it's not even to say that, okay, everybody go out and buy American flag. It's not even about that. It's about the mentality. And so the whole point, what ATOS advocacy part of it is about, is to educate people on our political position. First of all, we have to define who our is, who we. We have to define the W and the E. We. Like when we say we, what do we mean by we? Like an our. What is our political position? So we got to define who our is. And so that's when ATOS comes into play. American Descendants of Slavery. We have a unique heritage that people from the continent, people from Europe, black people from Europe, black people from the continent, black people from the Caribbean do not have. Although we share a lot of things from the institution of slavery, because remember, the slave trade was very indiscriminate when it came to who, people being taken from West Africa and so on and so forth. But over the years, depending on where you were, your experience became different. And so now slavery is slavery, but the details of the experience is different, and the responsible parties became different. So the claim of ATOS, because see, this is what people fail to do too, and this is part of the education process, because you have the actual slavery itself, the chattel slavery, but then you have everything that came out of that after, and that's the biggest difference between other places. Like, yes, everybody suffered pretty much the same template and programming: the breaking in, the change, the shackles, the whipping, the beating, the killing, the lynching, and all of those kinds of things took place pretty much everywhere, whether it's continental United States of America or in the Caribbean and so on and so forth. But once outside of that, right after that, this is when the biggest differentiation comes into play. We have Jim Crow. We have the Black Codes, Jim Crow. We have everything that led up even to modern day redlining, mass incarceration, all these different events that transpired right after that is what really solidifies our uniqueness in the experience over the decades and century. That's where it becomes really, really different from other places. And so based on that total experience, we can set boundaries and create an identity of a group of people, which is what ATOS is for, or ATOS stands for as far as the people. And so now we have a reparative justice claim. So the claim is not just for slavery proper, if there's such a thing, or chattel slavery, I should say, but it's for everything that came after it as well. And that's what people fail to realize, because if people go to the website, even on the website, it tells you, it gives you a summary. It says that it's talking about the institution of slavery itself, which is the chattel slavery. It's talking about Jim Crow, redlining, convict leasing, mass incarceration, and immigration. Okay, so it's talking about all of those in a summary fashion, and that's what people have to come to realize too. But we never ever get to these types of conversations. We never get to these points. And so I brought up asking that question about the flag to show that our mentality has to change. We have to start looking at this country as ours. Period. We built it. Like, if it wasn't for the slave labor, the United States would not be what it is today. And I don't think anybody would try to refute that. I think most sane people will agree with that. And so how is it that we built this country, and we were locked out of the access of its wealth and the benefits of all of that stuff for so long, and now that the world at large and the country in and of itself came to its senses to, at least on the books, allow us to have access, why aren't we taking advantage of the access and getting our just due? That's what reparative justice is about. An injustice took place, and we want what's due. But we have to view this country as ours. This is our country. Like I was born in the United States. I've never been outside of the United States. As a matter of fact, I've never stepped foot outside of the United States. My two parents were born in the United States. And their parents were born in the United States. So, and I've traced my genealogy back pretty far back to the late 1700s. As far as an unbroken chain of documentation that I have, through my family history and doing investigating on that. But so like I'm several generations, firstborn, like native to this country. And so I don't have another country to claim unless, I renounce my citizenship here or gain citizenship somewhere else and have dual citizenship, or however, I will go. But if that was the case, then, like, for example, Pan-Africanists will say things like, we need to be self-determination. We have to push self-determination and do for self-determination and stuff like that. But now this may not be an official stance of Pan-Africanism, but there are a lot of people claiming to be Pan-Africanists that will shun from the idea of looking at America as theirs, or having ownership, or having a participatory state or stance in this particular country, and they seek elsewhere. So the whole thing is Pan-African, African. So we're going to unite with black people all over the world, or Africans of the diaspora and on the continent. We need to become one, and we need to fight global white supremacies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that sounds good, and it's all good. But that is a bigger pill to swallow. In the meantime, people are having their specific justice claims, and they're making headway. The Japanese Americans did in the internment situation. They waited 40 years. The internment took place during World War II in the 1940s. They didn't receive reparative justice until the 80s, actually 1988, when Ronald Reagan signed the Civil Liberties Act into law, and they didn't start actually receiving the benefits right away. It was like maybe a year, 2 years, even after that. So they waited 40 to 50 years before, advocating. You know what I'm saying? And look, and so they got reparative justice for them. You have other situations, and the biggest one that most people talk about is the Holocaust, victims of the Holocaust. And see, Jews have no problem emphasizing the Holocaust, the fact that it happened, the fact that they're victims of it. They use a language of Holocaust victims or survivors of the Holocaust. They even got titles of shows, movies, and stuff, all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to us, the moment we mention the word slavery, oh no, I don't like that. I want to say enslaved Africans and stuff. Like we nitpick about the name. Can't even get to the issues. Can't even get to the issues. We're talking about the name. Why can't A stand for Africa? Like, do you like? Oh, let me ask you a question. I don't even know who all's in here now. It's still just us. Okay, let me ask both of y'all this question. Now, I asked this on Facebook, but I don't know if y'all seen it. If okay, is Africa a European creation? I mean. Let me clarify my question. Is
I'm actually reading Basil Davison's book, A Black Man's Burden, Africa and the Curse of the Nation State. I'm not at home right now. I'm going to pick my little girl up from school, so that may be misworded on the title. But I think what you're trying, I think at the moment, I understand what you're asking. As far as looking at it, as far as the name and the condition of nation states that it has at the moment. Is that a European creation?
Okay, yeah.
Can y'all hear me while I'm driving?
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
Okay. So, can't go into depth about that book, but I understand the question that's being asked. And to a degree, you can say yes, but it goes to how specific you want to be. I mean, no European man went and actually made the continent that we know of as far as physically making it. But as far as most education that we have coming from a Western paradigm and just identifying it as a continent, we've been trained to identify it that way versus understanding multiple layers of culture that's there and the many tribes and all the other accolades that go along with that question. I hate to get too long with it, but that's just how I see it. And that's actually a good book at the moment from what I've read so far. Like the first chapter talked about Liberia being formed in what they was calling free captives, and how a lot of them got European educations, and they brought that back. And due to the fact they got those European educations, they started branching into, at the time, this globalist point of view and establishing at the time that war for nationalities. Because a lot of people don't even bring that into the conversation of how even these nations were at war. You had France, the United Kingdom, the Dutch, all these was fighting against each other. And we have to know the backdrop to that if we want about reparations, because we got used by multiple sides of that. But it talked about how in that education and how they brought it forth, you would start to see at the schools, and it stuck out to me, the fact that someone said this. I'm not available to say who quoted it in their writings, but it made it a point to note in front of all the schools above the doorway entrance, it said, abandon Africa, all that enters here. And I'm like, man, they say that about the slave, I call them factories, the factories where they house the slaves. But I've never heard anyone say that as far as education goes. And that's one of the things we argue with now, because we become so enlightened through our education, quote unquote, that we forget that there is a such thing as an African mind and an African genius. And that does put a distinction between us. And I think that's a big part. I'm sorry, baby girl. Did you forget we're getting hot too? No, I just went and picked her up. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm picking her up. I'm picture brother and sister.
Yeah,
let me chime in with her, and I'm gonna go to me
okay.
for a second.
Yeah, let me just add to what you're saying, because then I'm gonna wrap it up, because I'll wrap it up at actually a minute, hopefully. So I just want to say something to what you're saying. The reason why I asked that question is I had typed that on Facebook, and what I was asking, I kind of qualified a little better than what I just asked, the way I just asked it. I was basically talking about what you said. The state that Africa is in right now, it's in terms of its structure, in terms of its countries and its structure, how it's structured right now. Is that a European creation? Because we know Africa consists of 54 countries, and so I asked the question: Is Africa, based on its current state in terms of how it's demarcated and structured, in terms of its political entities and so on and so forth, is that a European creation? And most people on the post and on Facebook, I think everybody said yes so far. I don't see anybody that said no so far. So everyone agreed with a yes answer, that yes. And so the reason why I asked that question is because, see, I these are discussions that we need to have. Now, the reason why I asked that question is because if the answer is yes, and so far everybody said yes, then what do we really mean when we say we're African? And I don't think people really kind of go in on what is the meaning behind saying that. Now, and some people may have different answers, but it deserves to be like a discussion to have, because when we say we're African, is it anchored somewhere that's useful? Because I say it all the time. I have African descent. I'm of African descent. I would consider myself, African American, in the diaspora, blah, blah. I'm a product, I'm only over here as being a descendant of, the kidnapping and the transatlantic slave trade and all this other kind of stuff. This is what, we would commonly say. But when we say we are African, if somebody says, are you African? And you say yes to that question, what are you really saying yes to? Like, what do you mean behind it? And so, because, okay, here's what I mean by that. Why it deserves to kind of go further discussion. Because anthropologically, right, every human on the planet that's alive today can trace their ancestry back to the continent of Africa. All right. So
I'm glad you said that, because everybody could proclaim either to be, and this is where you got to be even more specific, because when we do DNA and say we from West Africa, well, like you said, anthropology will divide it into two and say either you West African and everybody else is East African. Not to cut you off.
Well, no, there's two things that's going on. So in an anthropological context, somebody saying that they're African, it has value, it has meaning, because what you're saying is that you have heritage or you have ancestry from the continent of Africa. Outside of that anthropological context, it really has no value. Because Africa is a continent, it's a name for a geographical landmass, and because it's a location, it's a toponym, it's a place name, it's a geographical location on the globe, on the earth, and so on and so forth. It gives you a point of origin of heritage or ancestry. That is all in an anthropological context. When it comes to politics and it comes to law and legislation, somebody saying they're African, it has no meaning. Because It has
All right.
it has little to no value. And so the problem people having about ADOS and what's advocated is that ADOS conversation is not an anthropological conversation. And people are trying to merge it and say, why are y'all seem like y'all hate Africans, or y'all distance yourselves, or y'all not trying to identify with being African. What's up with that? What's up with that? And people don't understand that that's just not the context. It's not the conversation. Yes, everybody who is ADOS by default has African ancestry. By default. Like, nobody should even have to say that. Because in order for you to be a descendant of a victim of institution of slavery here in America, you have to be the person who was brought here from being kidnapped.
Yeah, you gotta really explain your lineage.
Exactly. Exactly. So saying I'm African in the context of politics and law has no meaning. Now, like I said, in the anthropological discussion conversation, yeah, all day, every day, you know, hey, I'm African. I'm an African descent. You know, I got DNA. You know, my haplogroup is this. My maternal haplogroup is this, that, and the third. We can do that all day, every day. And that's valuable in that context. But in the context of politics and law and legislation, it has no place. No place to say that, because Africa is not a political entity. It's not a country. It's not a nation. But people are talking about it as if it's a nation. I'm African. Okay, because see, here's where it gets crazy when you try to blend the two. And when I give these examples is when people see it. So a European who lives, let's say, in the UK, in Britain, in the UK right now, they technically can say that they are African. They are an African living in Europe. Like, anthropologically, they can say that, and they'll be telling the truth. They are an African who lives in Europe. And when they say that, what they'll be meaning, what the meaning would be behind that is that they can ultimately trace their ancestry back to Africa. So what that anthropological discussion does, and what the weakness of it is that there's no cutoff points. There's no demarcating line for when somebody can stop saying that they're African. Because everybody on the planet can technically say that they have African ancestry. Everybody living today can say that they have African ancestry. Ultimately. But where's the cutoff time? Where's the cutoff limit? You know, it's like throwing a party, right? And you're allowing people to come through the door. At some point, you got to cut it off because you filled your the party room filled to its capacity. So let's say you say, all right, you got to cut the line at 100 people. Well, where is that for this African claim? You know, and I'm talking about in an anthropological discussion. Where is the cutoff point? You see what I'm saying? That hasn't been established. Nobody has established that. So, coming back over on this side of the conversation, when we're dealing with legislation, politics, law, and reparative justice, the cutoff point becomes slavery. It becomes the transatlantic slave trade itself. That is one focal demarcating line from there. And so where we ended up, which is in the United States, and what came about after it is where our claims come in. So it's not about the continent. It's about what took place being kidnapped from the continent from that point forward. So we don't have to go back to the continent within this context. We just got to focus on what took place after we were taken from the continent. That's the focus. And so when people wanna always say Africa, Africa, African, it takes the focus off the legal aspect, the legislative, the political aspect. Because Africa, it has no meaning in politics. It has no real value in legislation and about politics. Because there's no political entity. There's no African constitution. Where's the Constitution of Africa? You know what I'm saying? That's crazy. So anyway, I've been on here, been on here a while. I start off by having this as a test, for any future discussions. So, but anyway.
Trace, who wants to talk?
Uh-oh. That's Juju.
Who wants to press milk?
Uh-oh, Juju, I'm going to have to mute your mic. Yeah, Juju has that mysterious phone that just unmutes itself. But anyway, so yeah, listen, y'all, I appreciate y'all spending some time hanging out with me because basically I started this to make sure I test everything out because I've never really broadcast on my own channel. So I want to make sure everything works the same way as any other channel that I've been doing, and give a kind of a sneak peek at the types of conversations that I would like to have and that I'm going to have if I schedule, when I schedule some future discussions. I want to slow the conversation down and have some more in-depth discussions about whatever topics that, come up. So I know ATOS is a hot topic. It's going to be a hot topic for a while. So I definitely will have some more discussions about ATOS and the movement, the advocacy, and all that good stuff, and the misinformation out there about it. And also I'll deal with other things that I'm focused on, which is, the history of Kemet, the culture, and the language, and all that good stuff. So, if any of you all are interested in that, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the notification bell. But I'm not going to jump out there out the blue like I do on Facebook. Now, if you're my friend on Facebook, now I'm going to tell you, I jump out the clear blue sky and do live streams on Facebook. And I usually do those because if I'm chiming in on somebody's topic post and I'm giving comments after comments, and whenever I find myself repeating myself, I just go live because I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and just be typing a whole bunch of stuff when I could just go live and have a more thorough discussion. I could talk. So that's what I've been doing on Facebook sometimes. But here on YouTube, I'm going to schedule some discussions, with the titles and everything. And hopefully, people will come in. And the thing is, I want to have interactive discussions. The chat is fine. I can see the chat. I'm reading the chat. But I would prefer the interactive discussion, panel style. Everybody could be heard. And plus, people could work on, being a little bit better at communication. Because I also noticed that people, curse each other out, they cut each other off, they talk over one another and stuff like that. So with us practicing having a panel and exercising restraint where we could kind of talk, let people talk. And what I do, this is just my suggestion, a little advice, is that when you're talking to somebody, especially if you had a computer or whatnot, if you're not driving or on your phone, always have like a notepad next to you. Like have a pen and some either scrap paper or a notepad next to you. So while somebody's talking, if there's something that you want to address, just jot it down. Just write a bullet point for yourself, a reminder, and write down the key points you wanna come back and address. That way you don't have to cut people off and everything. You can let them build, let them get it out, and then when it's your turn, you go ahead and do your thing. All right. Now I don't know. I mean, I've always done that. Like, I don't know, from school to business, you just do that. You just take notes.
Yeah, I always thought about it, but I never do.
Yeah. Like me, sometimes I won't even write. Like, I won't even write because my handwriting is sloppy now. But on my computer, I'll keep a separate. I'll open my Notepad app, And so I just type in the bullets right there. I just type it in. I don't have to write it. I just type in the bullets. As somebody's talking, I'm like, okay, yeah, I wanna speak to that point, and bam, I wanna speak to that point, and I'll just type myself these little notes. And because some people be like, man, I don't know how you be so patient and this and that. Well, I mean, I just put it to practice. I put those kind of things that help me be patient. Is I just don't have to cut people off. Now if they're gonna be talking and talk in 20 minutes and the whole half an hour, then I mean, sometimes within reason, I gotta cut in and be like, man, but for the most part, it's all within reason. But anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up. But does anybody have anything to kind of say before we close up?
Now, I was just gonna say that I'm up for it because I'm really new to this. I never really used my YouTube like that, and I never been on a panel, so kind of I'm up for it.
Okay, well, hey, you on one right now, even though this is like a first thing. So, but Vasa, you got anything? Any last thing?
Yeah, I joined in to show support, but I do have a question for you. And you're studying the HR 40 and the ADOS, and it's more or less to just bring enlightenment to a particular topic that comes in this conversation of just the history of it and my love for our people. I don't want them to be abandoned rice lands on the East Coast, and kind of divided it up with the 40 acres per person or household. And then the mules kick in from being left over from the Union after the Civil War. Has anybody put forth any literature to address that field order, to say that is a breach of contract and kind of seek reparations from that? If you understand what I'm trying to say, kind of have a wiggle or starting point to say that this was a breach of contract by giving us the land and then saying, oh, this was just a temporary decree afterwards, and that's how they took it back. And a lot of people don't even understand that they fought to maintain that land as well. They didn't just give it over easily. But I don't want anybody thinking that we was promised 40 acres and a mule and they never handed it over. So you start that argument with someone who points at that and say, we've already done that, and then they have no response to that, if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's addressed. That's definitely addressed. I mean, it's pretty much widespread on several different videos by Sister Yvette, Antonio, Darity, Hamilton. All these guys have addressed that, and it comes up from time to time where you have.
I assumed it has. It was more or less of this being your first video, and there's no telling who may watch it. But if you just look at the chat, that's one of the common things that gets spoke about. So I felt like that's one of those things that we need to sharpen up our information and knowledge on, because most don't know that. Just like most will say the civil rights movement started in the 1960s versus identifying it would have started in the 1860s, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to be made aware of.
Yeah, that's why I said reparative justice or reparations goes all the way back to the order that you're talking about. And so real reparative justice, if we're going to talk about its genesis, it starts there. And so people don't realize that after Lincoln was assassinated and President Andrew Johnson comes into play, he's the one that reneged and breached the contract and the orders and whatnot and all that other kind of stuff. And so people got to educate themselves on that. And had that been, gone through, then we would be having a totally different conversation. We probably wouldn't be having this conversation at all, because that would have given people who were once victims of the institution of slavery, that would have given them access to participate and accumulate wealth and do the things that we're talking about right now. And so because they weren't, and then thereafter, the government sanctioned and created policies and programs to lock ADOS out of gaining access to the American, the politics and the American wealth, the system, the whole system. We've been locked out, but now we're not on paper, and so now it becomes okay. Where is our just due? And so we're so disorganized. We're so outside. Like I said earlier, I don't know if you were on, if you came in here when I mentioned this earlier, is that we have a very old, backwards mentality of this outsidership. Like we look at ourselves as being outside of the government, outside. Like when we say government, in most people's minds, you know how you have demonstrative pronouns. We got this or that, and we say they versus us. Well, the moment you say government to most people, most black people, the government fits in the category of them. Like not me, not mine, not us. It's them over there. It's them. It's their stuff. That's what those folks do. And so we have this carryover of this mentality of this outsider stuff. And so what ADOS is trying to inform and educate people on is the fact that mentality has to change. We have to take ownership of this country. We built it, and we have to take ownership of it. And in order to be protected, because see what people forget is that government is the anchor for the macro level of a people, of their wants, demands, and problem solving and solutions. It's government that operates at that macro level. Because I can be successful myself. You got, people can be homeowners individually, but when you're talking about a group of people, a class of people, or whatever the case is, that's where the macro level fits into play. And you have to have access to it, and you have to have representation at that level. It just so happens that level, that macro level, is called politics, politicians, congressmen, on state, federal level, what have you. We have to participate. We have to become those folks so we can have representation on that macro level. And until then.
Can I interject with a question?
Yeah.
Why is it they always bring up the 13th Amendment and like being 3/5 or 1/3 of slaves or something like that?
Yeah, well, the thing is that the Constitution, when the Constitution was written, when it says "we the people," now if we were to read it literally like that and say "we the people" in order to form a more perfect union and blah 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 blah, we would think that "we the people" is talking about everybody. But if you go back in history at that particular time, in real time, "we the people" was not talking about black folks. It was not talking about no slaves or anybody like that. It was external to that. And so what happened is later on, you got these amendments. You got the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment that deals with civil issues. So the 13th and 14th Amendment is the citizenship amendments where people actually gain citizenship. So that's why the focus is on those amendments where people who were once an outside or outlaw status as slaves, but now free, now they have access to the government and the United States by becoming citizens itself. And that was through the 13th and 14th amendments. That's why that's why it comes.
People be using that as a band-aid for like why they don't delve that much into politics.
Well, but that just goes to show how much people need to really study it, because that amendment actually not only did it affect ex-slaves or freed slaves, but it affected everybody, because that's the if you look up citizenship and naturalization, it's gonna go back to that amendment, and so it affected everybody. That's the access to all your civil rights is through those amendments. And so this is why we had a whole movement called the Civil Rights Movement, because the advocacy or the demand was to enforce those civil rights. And so this is what the March on Washington, Dr. Martin Luther King, and that whole era of time, the civil rights era of time, was to pressure the government to uphold those rights, enforce those rights, those civil rights. And so this is when you get into Jim Crow, you get into segregation and all these other things that these policies and programs were geared counter to that. So although so people were trying to say, okay, yeah, y'all not slaves anymore, or we don't have slavery anymore, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we're gonna write all these different policies and everything, and create a new form of slavery. And it was basically to lock everybody out. And it was done long enough so that it could solidify the class that we call white. Because you gotta understand that there was no white people before 1681. And I don't mean that, like the way people look, but I'm talking about there was no social class called white prior to 1681. That's when the laws created a class called white. And matter of fact, man, I wish I had that census information, because you'll trip out. What the census records define as a white person, if you were born and raised in Egypt right now, if you were born and raised in Egypt and you come over here and you have children and you gain citizenship here and you have children here, you'll be classified as white. You would be classified as white. Everybody in North Africa is classified as white over here. That's the definition. That's in the definition of white over here. Look it up. I mean, I don't right now. I don't have it. I don't have
How
it.
so?
Huh?
How so?
Okay. See, and that's a good question. The reason is because it doesn't. See, the trick is for us to somehow psychologically connect the color, the name of the color, with the way somebody looks. And so when I say things like that, like North Africans, including Egyptians, would be considered white, everybody's like, wait a minute, what? How is that? Are you crazy? Because I know some dark skin, whatever. They'll be considered white because white is not. Nobody's white. Nobody's black. Like, nobody's literally white and nobody's literally black. These are containers for classes, social classes. And black is synonymous with a social class of failure. White is synonymous with a social class of success and access.
See, I thought it was a continental thing.
No. It's something that is permeates from America, from the United States, but it's how the United States classify people when they come here. So if you're Egyptian, you come here, you're white. To this very day, if you come from Morocco or the other northern African countries and you come over here, you're white. You are considered white. Look it up. It's on the census. It's on the census record. If you took a census, if you here and you're a citizen and you take a census, or you fill out a census form, you can identify as white by their definitions. They tell you. And that's an eye opener for some people, because then once you understand that, then you realize, wait a minute. So all this time, white is not really a blonde hair, blue eyed type of person necessarily. Like, it's not. It doesn't have to do with that.
Yeah, I got to study the census.
Yeah, it's a class. It's a hierarchy. It's a caste system, and white is on the top, black is on the bottom.
Right.
And so like people got, like most people that kind of talk about that black bottom caste or class, you hear a lot of Moors talk about it, and they say, don't call you black, you're a Moor, you're a Moor, you're a Moor. And so
they even say to call yourself white in court.
Yeah, but see, there's a lot of things that people gotta understand about that, and that's like a to me that's like a people don't get into it enough, and that it just sounds good. It sounds different. It's good. It's catchy and stuff like that. But people gotta really understand what these social classes are and how they were produced and what they're produced for. The black class or caste was created to perpetually keep another group of people on top. So like the black, like for example, black people are not always going to be black. Like there is going to be a new black. But it sounds funny for me to say that because we've associated the caste label of BLACK black with a certain look and not just understanding it as a class or caste. And that's where the trick comes in. And we got to break it. We got to break it. But anyway, it's 3:30, so I'm about to get out of here. But listen, I appreciate the support, man. I only came live, out the blue, and I don't even know how y'all even knew I was live unless you got notified and whatnot. But yeah, so I appreciate that, man. And I'm gonna have future discussions on this channel, but I'm gonna schedule it, and so anybody who's subscribed, make sure you click the bell, and so you'll be notified when I schedule, because when you click the bell, you'll get the notification when it's scheduled. So not like when I go live. I think you'll get notified for that too, but at least you'll know when I schedule these discussions. So if you free and it's a topic you want to chime in on, then hey, everybody's welcome. I don't discriminate. All right, but yeah, I'm gonna shut this down, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm about to go ahead to work myself now.
Okay, all right. So I'll say peace to you. All right, Sherman Hotep, peace. All right, for everybody that's on YouTube still, yeah, I appreciate anybody who watched this. I was a lot longer. Dang, 3 hours? Are you serious? All right, well, I'm definitely shutting down, but I appreciate anybody who watched this while I've been live, and anybody who watched this in the archives, especially if you watch all the way to this end, to the 3 hour mark. Man, I really appreciate that. You got some stamina. All right, but anyway, I appreciate it, and just look out for some more discussions. And everybody's invited. I want to hear from everybody. I want to hear people's thoughts, but I want them to be informed opinions. So that's my thing. I'm pushing that. Educate yourself on the various different topics. If you want to come in and chime in, make sure you got some information under your belt, and chime in, because that's what it's about. All right, but I'll say peace to everyone.